This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
Nashville, Tennessee. In 1989, a young journalist covering the country music scene was gunned down in what seemed a shocking act of random violence. Some believe it was a contract hit. Ray Hickinbotham was an Army intelligence expert whose top secret assignment was breaking codes from behind the Iron Curtain. Suddenly, without warning, he vanished. Eastern Connecticut, a lonely country road. Last year, a young woman driving to work was harassed by a mysterious assailant. He then calmly and methodically shot her in the face. Also, the poignant story of Patty English, who was born partially deaf. Patty's childhood was a lonely and silent world, brightened only by occasional visits from her natural father. Now Patty would like your help in finding the father she has not seen in 17 years. Join me. Perhaps you can help solve a mystery. According to the Justice Department, nearly half of all violent crimes in the United States is committed by a perfect stranger. Our next story focuses on a young woman whose peaceful life was shattered forever when she was caught in a horrifying game of cat and mouse with an unknown assailant on a lonely road. Still haunted by what happened, she's asked to remain anonymous. We will call her Carol. Monday, August 22nd, 1988. Carol drove to work along Bremen Hollow Road, a quiet two-lane highway that passes through the rolling countryside of eastern Connecticut. Carol was employed as a social worker at a hospital in nearby Putnam, where she counseled depressed and mentally ill patients. She had been using Bremen Hollow Road as a shortcut for more than a year. This morning, Carol found herself running 30 minutes late.
The road I took that morning was my normal road in the way that I always go to work. Sometimes I think I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, why me? I didn't do anything wrong. As I was driving, I all of a sudden came upon a black truck that was in front of me. It was driving very slow, so I slowed up right behind it.
As Carol followed the pickup, it began to behave in a bizarre fashion, speeding up and slowing down erratically, crossing the center line as if out of control. Carol began to sense that something was clearly wrong.
Shortly after that, he stopped the truck in front. I can see it all happening in slow motion. He just slid out of his truck, and I realized he had a gun in his hand. I can remember seconds after it happened that I was gonna die. I just felt or heard a rushing in my ears. And then I heard the radio on. And I knew that I wasn't gonna die. So my next thought was, I'm paralyzed. But I moved my feet and kicked off my shoes. It was like it was in a dream, that it wasn't really happening the way it was.
Carol was semi-conscious. She could hear the few cars that passed by, but was unable to signal for help. Because she was slumped across the front seat, she was out of the view of the other drivers. A few minutes elapsed before a utility serviceman drove by. From his elevated cab, he was able to see into Carol's car. The man immediately summoned medical assistance. Detectives also arrived within minutes. Carol was near death. She had already lost 2 pints of blood.
Stand back, please.
From the beginning, police viewed this case as an impending homicide. They knew they were racing against time to get crucial information.
Can you hear me? I'm Detective Turner. I'm with the state police. We want to find out what happened to you today. What I'd like you to do is I want you to blink your eyes once for yes and twice for no. Do you know the person who shot you? Was this person driving in a vehicle? Was the person driving in a car? Was it a truck?
Slowly but carefully, police were able to piece together an accurate description of the suspect and his vehicle.
Dr. Davis, line 33.
Carol was barely clinging to life when she reached the emergency room. The bullet tore through her face about 2 inches below her left eye. Her carotid artery had been severed, paralyzing her left vocal cord. Police would later determine that the assailant was just 10 feet away when he pulled the trigger.
Immediately following the shooting, we had troopers and detectives on Bremen Hollow Road and all the main intersections looking for both the suspect vehicle and also a vehicle similar in style to the one driven by the victim.
2 drivers told police that in the hour prior to the shooting, a black pickup truck had pulled on and off the highway repeatedly, taunting other motorists.
It's entirely possible that all of the incidents are related, and it was the same black pickup truck involved in all these incidents, interfering with the traffic.
A careful check was run on Carol's background, including her current and former patients.
Doing the background investigation on our victim, she had no enemies that she was aware of. We weren't able to find any either. It appears that it's a totally random shooting, and the victim just happened to be the next motorist to encounter this fella on Bremen Hollow Road.
The investigation then focused on finding the black pickup truck. Police learned there were more than 300,000 trucks in Connecticut that fit the description of the suspect's vehicle. Investigators checked auto body shops, garages, and gas stations throughout the state. They found nothing. The vehicle is described as a well-maintained black step-side pickup truck. It had flared fenders, standard width black wall tires, and shiny plain wheel covers.
It's the general feeling of investigators that the suspect is still out in the area, still going to work, still going to the same gas station. He's just your average citizen who, for whatever reason on this particular Monday morning, either under the influence or angry, we just don't know what provoked him to do this.
3 months later, Carol's condition had improved dramatically, but she was left with a grim physical reminder of the incident. The bullet that pierced Carol's cheek is still lodged in the back of her neck, close to her spine.
At first, I thought about the bullet being in me every day, half wanting it out and not being in me. I'm afraid that if I do go through an operation, that something may go wrong and it could be worse. So I will just leave the bullet in me until there's complications or pain.
We have a motiveless crime at this point. We're not able to determine any particular reason why this gentleman would get out of his truck and, without any provocation, shoot the only other person around him in the face, and do it so very quickly and leave the girl for dead. We don't have any idea why someone would do that.
I think of it every day, especially when I look in the mirror and I see the scars and think about the incident. that I'm afraid, and I'm also angry that this happened to me, and that he's still out there and maybe leading his normal life without any cares to what happened to my life.
The suspect is a white male between 26 and 32 years of age. He is approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, of medium build with brown curly hair covering his ears. Next, the story of Carol Solstad, an investigator who has reunited dozens of families with their lost loved ones. But Carol has been searching for her own father for over 40 years. Between May and September of 1945, a jubilant spirit reigned in the United States. American GIs, justifiably hailed as conquering heroes, had finally begun coming home from World War II. By the thousands they arrived, flushed with the optimism of victory, to a welcome of ticker-tape parades and open arms.
Hong Kong! Hong Kong! Can you honk your horn?
One of the returning soldiers was Lieutenant Ray Hickenbotham, a decorated war hero. He was assigned to Army intelligence and settled down with his wife Dorothy and 3-year-old daughter Carol at the Vint Hill Farm Army Station outside Arlington, Virginia.
My memory was one of a kind of magical summer. It was the first time I had a dad at home and my mom there. There was just a lot of fun, a lot of time for the family to be together.
I got you. I got you.
In no time, the jubilant mood of victory faded, and an era of fear and suspicion began. Stalin and Communist Russia, our valiant allies in 1945, were our deadly enemies by 1947. That same year, Vint Hill Farm Station served as headquarters for Ray Hickenbotham's Army Intelligence Unit. The station housed a top-secret radio operation. It is believed that Ray was part of a select group of expert code breakers who monitored radio communications from behind the newly created Iron Curtain. The Cold War had begun.
It's a good ulcer job. You're sitting at a desk, you're not mobile, you can't get up. I've seen them scream sometimes, and just the physical frustration, and it's just, trying to ventilate their frustration while they continue plodding away with this boring but potentially incredibly fascinating job.
I think I've got something. Okay, here, let me see that. This just came in over the China link.
In less than a year, the Central Intelligence Agency would be created, and the group at Vint Hill Farm would be absorbed into the CIA.
Where's Daddy?
Sweetie, Daddy's at work tonight. You know, he can't always be here, but that doesn't mean he doesn't love you.
Ray found himself working long, hard hours. The work at Vint Hill Farm took more and more time away from his family.
Be back to pick me up at 3.
In late summer of 1947, Ray was transferred to another top-secret group at the Arlington Hall Intelligence Station. He did not tell Dorothy about the new assignment.
See? Say, watch what I can do.
Watch what I can do.
Yes, very good. Ray, can you give some attention to your daughter?
My mother was worried because he seemed so tired and so uptight. He became very tense, and it became worse. It just got worse and worse.
Ray?
Dorothy, I don't want to drag you and Carol into my problems at work.
Ray, that's what we're here for. We're a family. Ray, I just want to talk to you.
Three weeks later, Dorothy took Carol to Long Island for a 2-week visit with her grandparents. When Dorothy tried to phone Ray at their Vint Hill Farm apartment, she was given the surprising news that he had gone on leave.
What?
Then her former neighbor at the Army station discovered that a moving crew had suddenly appeared at Dorothy and Ray's apartment.
What's going on here?
It's official Army business, ma'am. That's all I can tell you. Okay, go ahead and get this chair and take it out to the truck.
My mother received a phone call from the downstairs neighbor, another officer's wife. She said to my mother, there are movers upstairs, packers from the government, packing up your things and taking them out of your apartment. What is happening? And my mother was just frantic because she didn't know what to make of this.
Indeed, military authorities had emptied Ray and Dorothy's apartment without a word of explanation. Two weeks later, a moving van showed up at Dorothy's parents' house on Long Island. In the boxes and trunks, there was not one single item belonging to Ray.
No pictures, no letters, no writing, nothing. It was as though he had been purged from our lives, as though he was completely gone and wiped out. And my mother just didn't know what to make of it.
A month went by. Then a man claiming to be from the Army visited Dorothy on Long Island. He brought shocking news about Ray.
Look, this is all I know. On October 14th, 1947, he was listed as AWOL. 30 days later, he was dropped from the military rolls and classified as a deserter.
Captain, did you know my husband? Well, if you did, I think you would agree he could never be classified as a deserter. I want to know what's really going on here.
Look, I'd like to be able to tell you, but I'm not at liberty to discuss the matter any further. Thanks for the coffee. Look, I don't want to have to be the one to tell you this. Because Ray's been classified as a deserter, you and Carol have lost all your military benefits. Look, I have my PX card. Could I take you over to the post? Get some groceries? Something.
Thank you. But that won't be necessary.
Goodbye.
Dorothy later tried to get in touch with the mysterious visitor. The Army said they had never heard of him.
My mother was alone. She was frightened, and she was afraid something terrible had happened to my father. Perhaps he had gone overseas and been killed in the line of duty. She could not comprehend that he would just disappear. She really thought the government was withholding information from her.
It is absolutely not total paranoia to wonder if the CIA or another intelligence branch had something to do with his disappearance. Just sitting right here, in my own experience, which didn't include that wild era of intelligence, I can think of a half dozen cases where people, you know, there were weird things like that happened, where the family was not told the truth and the loved one did disappear or died and they weren't told how they died.
Ray Hickinbotham was considered a deserter and was in disgrace. Carol and her mother struggled to make ends meet. Carol grew up, married, and moved to Oklahoma, where she lives today. Ironically, Carol's search for her father developed into a career. She is a private investigator specializing in reuniting lost families. Carol has hundreds of grateful clients.
Most of the people I deal with are children looking for parents who've been either separated by divorce or who were never married to the other parent in the picture. And they want to create a family relationship. But I have found brothers and sisters, I have found grandparents, I have found boyfriends and girlfriends, even an old teacher.
Good to see you. A long time.
Oh, I knew it was you as soon as I got off the plane.
I would have never known.
The most satisfying thing for me is when someone tells me, I feel good for the first time in many years. This pain that I felt from separation is relieved. And I feel like I've accomplished something and I've overcome situations that have built up over the years. But I also feel a sense of sadness because I can't do it for myself.
Carol has never given up on her own search. She requested a copy of her father's military records under the 1971 Freedom of Information Act. In the summer of 1979, the documents finally arrived.
As I looked through the material that I received, I began to get a picture of someone very special, someone very highly trained, someone who had performed at the top level, and I came to believe that this was a man who would not just disappear. One of the documents revealed that there had been no investigation requested by the Army into my father's disappearance, that the FBI had never been brought into the act at all. And that appeared to be very strange to us, that a highly trained, highly cleared officer could disappear off the face of the earth and no one went looking for him.
After 25 years of butting heads with the government bureaucracy, Carol finally went to the media. A newspaper article about Carol and her missing father appeared in the local Arlington newspaper. 3 hours later, she received an intriguing telephone call.
Hello?
May I speak to
The caller identified himself by a code name, Archangel. He was using a car phone but would not reveal his exact location.
He said that my article had really rattled cages at the CIA and that it had really shook people up. Those were his words.
Now listen carefully. I've got to give you some background. There have been sensitive leaks in the atomic energy area, and your dad was investigating those leaks. In August of '47, an attempt was made on his life. His superior decided to bury your father. It was easier to drop out 20 years ago. Things were different.
The man calling himself Archangel told Carol that her father was not a deserter. Because Ray's life had been in danger, a paper trail had been created to cover his disappearance.
The whole time, he was a few miles from Arlington.
Archangel revealed the astounding news that for nearly a year, Ray Hickinbotham had lived only 3 miles away from Carol and her mother, hidden by the government in the suburbs of Washington, D.C.
Where is he now?
Your father is still alive. His name is Nelson. He lives in a NATO country where there are high mountains, crystal clear lakes, and a long-time democracy. That's all I can say. Look, I have to get off now. Goodbye.
Bye. When I hung up the phone, I felt very drained. Maybe he was a jokester or a con artist. Maybe he was going to call back and want money. I just didn't know what to believe. But there was a part of me that kept saying, my dad's alive. There's a chance.
Carol never heard from the mysterious caller again, but she and her son Ian have never stopped trying to decipher Archangel's clues.
Let's see, it's crystal clear lakes.
It is possible that my father chose to follow his career, and that was what he wanted above all else, including myself and our family. And that's very painful. I have compassion for a young man who may have made a wrong choice. We all make wrong choices, and I want my father to know that we love him and that it's forgotten. We just want the pain of not having him to end.
Tonight, an unusual update concerning a case featured last season on Unsolved Mysteries. Gary Goff, who's been charged with first-degree murder in the brutal shooting death of an Arkansas man, wants to make a personal plea to his former lover and alleged accomplice to turn herself in. On the night of October 19th, 1986, 39-year-old Charlie Sigmund showed up at the home of his estranged wife, Ann, and her boyfriend, Gary Goff. According to Ann, Charlie arrived in a drunken rage and forced his way into the house. Once inside, Ann claims that Charlie began to beat her severely. Then Gary Goff came to her rescue. Despite a broken arm, Gary fought with Charlie, then shot him 7 times. Charlie died before police arrived.
She was yelling for help.
During interrogation by the police, Ann and Gary claimed that the shooting was in self-defense. No charges were filed, and they were released. Suspicious of Ann and Gary's story, authorities continued to investigate the shooting. They wired one of Ann's friends for sound.
That much time. Fine. I will wait until tomorrow, and then I'll call.
She had, in talking with Miss Sigmund, had told her she was fixing to go to the police. Miss Sigmund ultimately told her not to go to the police, or asked her not to go to the police, and give her time to, her and Mr. Goff time to leave town. She incriminated herself on the tape.
Authorities issued a warrant for Ann and Gary's arrest, but before they could serve it, the couple disappeared. On May 22nd, 1989, Gary Goff voluntarily surrendered to Pemiscot County Sheriffs on the charge of first-degree murder. Goff is currently being held at the Pemiscot County Jail, where tonight he wants to make a personal appeal to Ann Sigmund.
I would like for Ann to turn herself in and try to get this straightened out. And all I ask her to do is come back and tell the truth. That's what's got to come out, the truth, whatever it is. And I need some help because I don't know everything that went on that night. And the only way I'll ever know is find Ann.
Nashville, Tennessee, country music capital of the world. Each year, millions of fans flock to the city to see and hear their favorite performers. The music business also attracts a host of aspiring stars looking for a foothold in the music world.
Nashville is like dreamland. You know, people have these big fantasies, and every day people come here just to make their fantasy or their dream come true. And a lot of those people sacrifice, you know, their whole life savings. They'll spend their entire life savings, everything they've got, on that dream.
Like thousands before him, 23-year-old Kevin Hughes came to Nashville with dreams of making it big in the business side of the music industry. But just after Kevin began to establish himself in the Nashville music scene, his dreams came to a violent end.
I'll talk to you next week. All right, buddy. All right,
In 1986, Kevin left college to become the director of Cashbox Magazine's Top 100 Country and Western chart. For Kevin, it was a chance of a lifetime.
But, two. You got a couple hours.
From the time he was late grade school.
Cool.
He started listening to music and started buying the magazines. We'd have to go and pick up billboards about 40 miles away because we couldn't get them where we lived. And he always read the billboards and even would make up his own charts and that type of thing.
As chart director, Kevin received playlist reports each week from radio stations across the country. Based on these reports, he would rank records from 1 to 100 according to their popularity. A high position in one of these charts can be very influential to the career of a new artist.
It was a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And in my tenure as a promoter, I've been through probably 12, 15, maybe even more chart directors. And he was probably, overall, not only the best, but the most fair.
Yeah, I'll just leave the front door unlocked.
He was real rare for any type of business, not just the music business. He was just very kind and very religious and just a Christian all the way around. He was very honest and trustworthy and loyal, and he loved his job. And so he'd put in, you know, dozens of hours after hours. You know, after 5 o'clock, he was here, you know, several nights a week working on the chart till 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
On the night of Thursday, March 9th, after nearly a year on the job, Kevin was once again working late, making the final adjustments for that week's chart.
Come on in, man. It's unlocked.
That evening, Kevin's friend Sammy Sadler, an aspiring singer-songwriter, dropped by to say hello.
Okay. How are you?
Great. Working hard?
Yeah. It's been a long day.
How much longer do you think you'll be working?
I can go. I can finish this up tomorrow.
At Kevin's suggestion, the two young men left the office at approximately 8:30 p.m. to go to a nearby restaurant for dinner. After dinner, Kevin and Sammy made an unplanned stop at Evergreen Records, the company where Sammy worked, so that he could use the phone.
You know, we were just out having a good time. I mean, you know, we didn't know that we were going to eat. I didn't know I was going to eat when I got down there. We didn't know we was going to stop by Evergreen. It just popped in our head. You know, it popped in his head, let's go eat, and I just wanted to use the phone to call my parents. We come into Evergreen, and we was in here about, I would say, approximately 10 minutes.
Mom, how you doing?
I was using the phone, and while I was on the phone, I heard something rattle the door.
Yeah. What was that?
I don't know.
Check it out.
So Kevin got up and walked out into the front. I don't know whether he looked out the front door or the side window. And when he come back in, I just said, what was that? And he said, well, it looked like a black guy, but I'm not for certain. He said, I really couldn't tell. And that's when I said, well, I told my mother, I said, we'll call you later. I said, we're gonna go on home.
Yeah, I have no idea.
You know, maybe if I'd have been alone down here, maybe something would have, you know, sparked in my head that something was wrong or, you know, that something wasn't right. But I had, you know, I was with somebody, and, I mean, never in a million years do you think you're gonna get shot.
How's it look?
Man, that guy, he went away. He's gone.
You know, you kind of usually get a feeling inside you if somebody's behind you or walking up to you or something, and I never got that feeling.
We are.
Yeah, we're out. But ain't strange.
And even when we was walking across the street, I turned around and looked behind us, and I didn't see anything. So I walked in front of Kevin's car and opened the door and sat down. And as soon as I sat down and started to reach for the door, there was a guy out on the sidewalk. And that's when he shot me.
Sammy Sadler survived the brutal attack, despite a bullet that severed a major artery in his arm. Kevin Hughes was shot 3 times. 2 of the bullets entered the back of his head. He was dead when police arrived at the scene.
We have no motive, we have no suspect, we have no solid witnesses. Even though we have 5 people that witnessed this, we have none that can tell us what the suspect looked like.
The next day, rumors began to circulate through Nashville that Kevin's murder was a professional hit. Some people in the music industry and media speculated that Kevin had either been mixed up in or had refused to participate in a chart manipulation scheme.
On the surface, it looks like a pretty good theory, that Kevin was in a position to make a number 100 song, so he could make it number 5. Or the charts could be padded, and Kevin, if he was taking money from somebody, from a promoter or whoever, from a singer, he could, in theory, push this person's record up. But we found no evidence of that. Kevin was not involved in that. He was not the type of person to be involved in that.
If he was involved in something and he didn't want to participate, a phone call could be made and he could be fired, or he could be terminated for, but why kill him? His job wasn't that important to be killed for. That's what we've determined. If it's a professional hit, why do it with a witness there, with Sammy Sadler there? If Sammy wasn't the target, why even include Sammy? Why not wait until Kevin was alone?
A second theory is that Sammy and Kevin were the tragic victims of a robbery gone wrong.
How can it be a robbery when nothing is ever spoken and the shooter chased Kevin down and killed him, made it a point to make sure he was dead? Even after he'd shot Kevin twice in the head, he never once made any attempt to take any money from Kevin. He ran away as soon as he fired the shots.
You're up 3, but you're gonna lose your bullet this week.
Another theory connected to Kevin's work is that he may have been the target of an angry manager or performer with a misguided grudge.
I just do what radio tells me to do. I got no control over it. Nothing
Might
at all.
be a person that didn't understand, that maybe blamed Kevin for the failure because he wrote a song and it didn't become successful and he needed somebody to blame. I could say that could be a theory, but that's the only way that I would ever believe that it was music related, if you want to call that music related. I don't.
For Sammy Sadler, the nightmare that began on that cold spring night continues. He has undergone surgery on his right arm and may need more to repair nerve damage caused by the assailant's bullet. Although he continues to pursue a singing career, he has been unable to play the guitar since being shot.
You know, I would like to know why, because I don't know why. I don't know who or why. I mean, I can sit here and talk about it now, you know, then, you know, I couldn't. But it still hurts. And, you know, you can't bring him back. I just hope, you know, I hope that this helps solve the case, because nobody knows, nobody understands why.
One possible clue to the gunman's identity is a baseball cap found near Kevin Hughes' body the night of his murder. It bears the inscription, World War II veteran and damn proud of it, as well as a drawing of a combat infantryman. Police theorize that it may have fallen from the killer's coat as he leaned over Kevin and fired the fatal shots. They have been unable to locate the owner or manufacturer. Next, the story of a woman who has been partially deaf since birth and who wants to reunite with a father she has not seen for 17 years. Unsolved Mysteries is broadcast in a closed caption version so that the hearing impaired may also participate. Recently, we received this letter from a woman named Patty English. Partially deaf since birth, Patty asked for our help in locating her father, whom she'd not seen for 17 years. In her touching letter, Patty writes, I want to hold my dad so much. I remember his feeling, love and kindness. With your help tonight, Patty's wish may come true. When Patty's mother brought her new baby girl home from the hospital on Christmas Day of 1958, Patty was already a victim of circumstance. Her mother, Helen, was just 17 years old and pregnant when she married 21-year-old Robert Wilson Miller. The couple separated before Patty was born. Patty's premature birth was responsible for her deafness.
I was a tiny baby. My mother carried me only 6 months, but they thought I'll never make it. But I make it.
The day Patty was brought home, her father had reappeared with a crib and a beautiful white dress.
Hi, Helen. How you doing?
Hello, Robert.
I got some presents for the baby.
That was good of you.
Hey. Can I hold her?
She's your daughter.
Sadly, the marriage was doomed, and the couple divorced within weeks of Patty's birth. Patty's mother eventually remarried, and Patty spent her early childhood assuming that her mother's new husband was her real father.
Patty!
One day, when she was 5 years old, Patty saw a strange man at her door.
I'm Robert Wilson Miller.
Yeah?
Is Helen home?
Nope.
Can I see Patty?
Nope.
Patty was unable to hear what they said, but through lip reading, she was able to get the gist of their conversation.
She's my kid.
I watch his relive what he is saying, and it's hard for me understanding what he's talking about.
Please. Couple of minutes.
But he said, I have the right to see her because she's my daughter. And he talked real nice and real friendly, and I really like this man.
You're such a big girl. You know, the last time I held you, you were just a baby. You may not understand this, okay? I'm your daddy.
Time's up, pal.
By the time the stranger left, Patty was bewildered.
My stepfather said, he is not your father, and I'm your father. And I didn't know what's happening then, that time.
As the years went by, Patty remembers enduring the pain of separation and the loneliness of growing up unloved.
Hi, can I help you?
I'm Robert Wilson Miller. We spoke earlier about...
Oh, yes.
Oh, this is my wife.
But in 1971, when Patty was 12, her father found her again. Her junior high school allowed him into the classroom to see his child.
Hi, Patty. How are you? Do you remember me?
Patty's father had hoped that his daughter would recognize him, but Patty was confused.
I'll see you again someday.
I have a strange feeling. He's so good to me. He hugged me and he kissed my forehead. And he started crying. And his wife started coming forward, put his arm around him. And I feel that he cares. My mother and my stepfather never give me a hug. And I want their attention, their love, but never had one from them when I was a kid.
Patty, he is your real father.
When Patty finally realized who the man was, she ran after him.
You all keep working.
I found out that he's my really father because I had the feeling, warm feeling from him, and I know then he's my dad. And I come out and I saw his car going out the parking lot and I started waving at him. I said, "Dad, don't go." And too late, he left.
I want my daddy.
I cry in the pain. And all this nightmare I ever had. And I really want my dad.
Patty remembers enduring a traumatic adolescence and finally, at the age of 14, ran away from home and ended up in a shelter.
I was sitting by the window, looks out, and I was thinking about my past life, terrible things in my mind.
At the shelter, a social worker took an interest in Patty's case, and after calling every Robert Miller in the phone book, finally located Patty's father. He arrived and heard his daughter's sad story.
I don't want to go back there. I want to go home with you.
He explained that he would call a lawyer, but a few days later, Patty was sent back home to her mother and stepfather. Her father had promised to visit Patty, and for an agonizing week after coming home from the shelter, Patty waited for him to arrive.
What's going on? Get in there!
My stepfather had the hammer with him, and he come up to my natural father. And I thought, oh no, please don't go, please don't go.
We want Patty to come with us.
She's not going anywhere.
Look, I don't want any trouble, but we talked to her at the shelter, and we spoke to a lawyer.
Get out of here.
And he left. I mean, he looked at me at the storm door, and then it was sad, it was, and he left.
Get upstairs.
So I ran in my bedroom, cried and cried and cried. Then I went up to the window and I looked to say my prayer. I said, God, please bring him back. I need him. I love him.
Patty never saw her father again. She believes that he was blocked from visiting by legal action and feels certain that he would have taken her if it was possible. Fortunately, as Patty grew into an adult, her life began to improve. After meeting her husband, James, in 1977, she soon began to raise her own family. Though her husband is also deaf, their two children can hear perfectly, and they have grown up in an atmosphere of love and affection. Today, Patty wants to find her real father and introduce him to the husband she loves and the grandchildren she is so proud to have brought into the world.
I'm happy with my marriage. I'm happy with my children. And I really want my dad. And I hope I can see him again it'd be rejoicing.
Just minutes after her story aired, Patty received a surprise phone call from one of our viewers, her half-sister who's also named Patty. 2 days later, Patty and her father met for the first time in more than 17 years.
I love you, Patty.
Yeah, I love you too. I first met Dad, I was really crying, and we were hugging, we were crying, and it was good.
It was just a beautiful feeling, you know. It's sad, but it's beautiful. You know, you just choke up. And you hurt on the inside and everything. It was just wonderful. You know, that's a lot of years. We got a lot of catching up to do.
For Patty, the reunion with her father marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one of love, fulfillment, and family.
All these years, in my heart, I feel that I'm still his daughter, and I know I'm still his daughter. And I want to have a second chance of life, second chance of family, and I'm very excited. I'm very grateful.
Join me next week for another edition of Unsolved Mysteries.